Running side by side in a hard sprint, Void, Jida, and the others all made a mad dash for the pillar's top. The light that had been blasting from its form now cast a beautiful white haze down upon their souls, as the two grieving parents could now sense their boy. He was near. He was alive. It just begged the question as to where he was within the light. Man, it's much bigger up close, Jida said with a sense of awe, as the massive blast of static looked to have been the size of a Major League Baseball field. No kidding. I'm surprised we haven't gone blind yet, Joey said with a soft gasp for air, while both Pavnu and Kor ran by her. It's an energy source of life. I doubt it would be that harmful, V theorized as they made to the halfway point on the bridge. Although infected by Lotus's influence, the energy they all felt was in the realm of a heavenly light that made things feel both off, yet right. It was as though they had barged into the afterlife itself. Without warning, the massive fountain of life flashed with a red haze and electrical surge, causing the Beyonders to flinch and shout in their godly tones. Whoa! Void shouted in response as Orbisol halted their sprint and gazed towards their makers' struggling bodies. The restraints around their space-filled souls emanated the same flashings of color, causing them to shake and then raise their hands forwards in what appeared to have been a struggling manner. The big guys had no control over their actions, it would seem, as they all moaned out in agonizing pain. What's going on with them? Vivian asked, as their eyes shimmered with energy. Lotus is doing something. Be alert! Void commanded, just as cracks of light began to appear in front of them. Turning forwards, everyone watched as the air crackled apart in the several shattered glass portals. Glitch portals. Void, Jida, Joby, Pavnu, and Kor recognized, as the beasts from their past began to spill out. Stables, polychromes, unstables, sourclaws, hellhawks, petal snakes, nearly every single type just crawled their way out into a small horde that charged back towards the Spark's little army. He's trying to keep us out, Pavnu exclaimed while pulling out her katana and putting her mask over her face. Then we break and enter, Void replied as he summoned his battle mask and activated two of his chain Nova runes to his hands. Orb Assault! Push on and don't stop till none remain! Void commanded as they all returned to their enemies in a hard sprint. Deploying her own battle mask, Joby activated her rocket skates and light matter blades, while Jida ignited into a purple flying burning haze. Beside them, T pulled out his axe, Tiger ignited the flames, as well as V, his blades, Vivian, her frostbiter, Void his spear, and Chibi, a cartoon mallet. With a roar, Kor leapt upwards and transformed into his beast form. Landing with a roll, he stood right back up with a glaring orange eye, as they all at last bridged the gap and clashed. Spinning around with a wave of fury, Void turned himself into a ruby glowing twister and slashed through the glitches like a hot knife to butter. Warping with kicks and flared punches, Jida reduced the glitches to char while Tiger fought close at her side, burning their enemies down with a beautiful mix of orange and purple. Hey sis, give me a boost! Tiger demanded as she turned herself into a glowing ball of fire. Whirling around, Jida unhooked her guitar and strummed its broken strings, creating a sudden blast along with an impulse of Tiger's own needs. Shooting down with the purple waves, the matter spirit exploded upon the ground into a beautiful eruption of flames that both incinerated and tossed the glitches off the bridge. Blasting forwards on her skates with Pavnu riding upon her back, the two sisters swung their blades in a combined effort, creating a beautiful yet destructive mix of red and yellow light. Beside them, Kor both jumped and smashed. He rolled over glitches, clobbered his tail into a few, while even blasting his Nova beam from his eye. Running up on a Sourclaw, the older Nova Sun brother reached down, snagged a stable off the ground, and then smashed it across the big glitch's face. After this, Kor swung his tail around and impaled it through the beast's chest. With a turn, the dark matter spark swung the monster off and into the air, where Vivian leapt, froze it, and punched straight through its body, all while having a smile of determination on display. Side by side, T, V, Chibi, and Void bounced off one another, slashing and bashing their respective weapons while even rolling over one another, performing combined attacks that left the glitches unable to do much in that moment. "I got the leg!" Void exclaimed as he slid under a polychrome while cutting its leg clean off. "I got the waist!" T shouted as he leapt upwards and cleaved his burning axe through the monster's abdomen. "And I the neck!" V shouted while slashing his mirror space blades through the polychrome's neck, leaving it to fall on the ground with spilling rainbow blood. "And just for extra measure," Chibi called as he slid over and smashed his mallet onto the creature's head, flattening it like a pancake due to his cartoon logic. Retracting his runes and returning into a hard run, Void deployed his mirror space Nova Blades alongside his wings. Using this, he blasted himself forwards and began to cut and dice his way through the enemies, all in a beautiful red haze of electric fury. Retracting his wings with a slide, the spark rolled and continued to cut and slash with an elegant form. Getting back up, he swiftly deployed his arm cannons and took 2 clean shots to a pair of polychromes, taking them out with ease. After this, he lunged up and forwards with a kick. Deploying his bow and arrows, the spark took a 3-way shot, which took out 3 stables. After this, he landed back down with a fist and unleashed a powerful blast of electricity. Looking back up to a rushing polychrome, Void activated his arm blades and swung them at the monster. Lodging them into its body, he spun the beast while even firing rockets from his chest. As these cherry red missiles exploded upon his enemies, Void leapt again and threw the monster away. As Void came back down, he activated his father's spear and stabbed it downwards with a red shock-waving energy, destroying the last of the glitches in everyone else's path. Standing back upright while retracting his mask and weapons, Void took a breath of relief as everyone did the same behind him. Looking up, they could all now see that they had made it to the pillar's top, greeted with a familiar heavenly archway door that was designed in a crystallized purple and red material. Without a word, Void led the charge inside, with everyone in tow. Journeys Ahead. Beyond Trilogy. Finale. Journey's End. Written and narrated by T.S. Pro Art. Thank you all for listening. Jay! Void called with a tense heart while cupping his hands to his mouth. Jay! Baby, we're here! Where are you? Jida exclaimed with a similar hand gesture to her mouths, as Joby and Puffin did the same. Squirt! It's us! It's actually us! Where are you? Little pup! Little pup, where are you? They all called in worry, as the others began to make themselves heard as well. Jay! Core bellowed. Jay! T and Tiger called as well. Kid! Where you at, kid? Bode and Vivian said too, while V just stared on ahead, with Chibi nervously waddling by his side. The top of the pillar was oddly empty. Outside the massive spire of energy, all that they could see was just crystallized flooring of reds and purples, along with the faint remnants of what was once large walls, which were now just chunks of medium-shaped rocks poking out along the ledge. That was it. No fancy statues of angels, a grand throne, or any guarding forces. It was just basic and simple in design. It was odd. Very odd, he thought. Blinking on ahead, the green Matterberg took in the sight of the staticky light spire, the massive form of energy, which, upon closer examination, appeared to have something, or rather, someone inside of it. Guys? V now spoke with a slow point, getting everyone to turn their heads. Following his gaze, they were all able to see what he had been referring to. Close to the edge, within the light's endless wave, was the outline of something large and bulky, a figure that nobody could discern as to what or who it was. They appeared to be kneeling, but even that was hard to estimate. They looked as though to be rippling with the light, their form changing soul wavering. It sent a wave of unease through everyone. Even Void was left in a state of confusion and uncomfortable nature before this being, this indiscernible form. What is that? Joby asked, as they all stood side by side, just eyeing down the blurry and darkened figure. It's quite big. Vivian spoke her thoughts, as everyone began to think on their own terms. Well, what do we do? Walk into the light? Just confront an unknown that may or may not be dead? T asked with a tossing hand gesture while scratching the back of his head. Walk into the light? Tiger asked with her hands to her hips. I don't know. I'm not seeing the kid anywhere. It's a possibility. T replied to his wife as Void slowly approached. Hang on. Just for a moment here. He spoke as everyone watched him intently. Squinting his eyes, the red-crested spar gazed upon the figure and the light around it. There was something about it. His soul told him so. It was like a tickle, a small pull that caused his heart to race even faster. Now having Jada close by his side, Void fully closed his eyes and began to focus. With everyone watching, they all witnessed his horns begin to slowly hum and pulsate, flashing red, 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 and then, for just a flicker, purple. Shooting his eyes open with an electrical buzz leaving them, Void gasped loudly and gazed hard upon the mysterious figure within the light. Jay! He called with an immediate lunge into it. Yet, all the spark was met with was a hard jolt from the power source, having been a dense barrier of energy that was equivalent to the density of a layered brick wall. Wait, Jay? Jada asked in a tense breath, as Void immediately lunged again, ramming his left shoulder into the light, in hopes of breaking through to the other side. That's him! That's him! Void exclaimed with a cold sweat, as he then began to punch the light with burning red fists. What? Joby asked with whining and realizing eyes, as she suddenly kicked the wall of light herself. Oh god! Honey! Jada bellowed with a scared gasp as she tried to warp her way inside. However, being unable to cross through. Pop! Pavnu yapped as she charged herself up and rammed into the light as well, to no avail. Hang on! Step back! T shouted out as he reared his axe back and clashed it against the light. Not surprisingly, to no avail. Joining in, Vode, Vivian, and V began to strike at the barrier as well. However, doing very little in breaking the seal. Gruffing, Cordon began to smash his fist into the light, while yet again, nothing happened. With his new electric-shaped veins glowing red, Void began to charge up his mirror space energy to its max capacity. He and everyone else had gone through hell and back to reach this moment, fought hard, shed tears, and felt defeat time and time again. His son, he wouldn't give up now. No wall of light would break that bond. With a red, shining surge, Void deployed his hooks, swung, and slashed them with such force, they managed to break through the barrier by sheer force of the Beyonder's energy coursing within him. As they went forwards, Void made sure not to slash his son. Rather, he spun them in such a way that they merely lassoed around his, now massive waist. Hang on, buddy! We have you! Void called with burning emotions as he began to then pull with all his might. Running up, Jida, Joby, Pavnu, and the rest all took hold of Void's blade whip strands and began to help tug. Pulling with all their might, Orbisalt slowly began to heave and yank the large being out of the light. Inch by inch, the blurry outline moved, being dragged across the floor like a stone statue, giving everyone outside some hefty trouble. Come on, buddy! Come on! Void called again, as the boy was nearly through the barrier. We have you! You're coming home, little star! Jida exclaimed as peace was almost in reach. Yet, it was then everything suddenly shifted. With a flash from within the light, Everyone looked upwards in response, only to see a red and purple eye opening within where Jay's head was. Immediately halting with tense stares, Orbital all locked their eyes with something. Those eyes. Those damn eyes, everyone thought. Those two different colored eyes that now squinted within the light. Jay? Void asked in a whisper as his son, whatever it was, slowly began to stand upright. Rising to a total of 16 feet off the ground, the outline of a massive, fit, and bulky figure glared down upon the group, causing all their stomachs to drop in instant dread. Dad? I don't think that's Jay. Joey mumbled with immediate fear as his figure reached down and took hold of Void's blade lassos and unleashed a power that none of them had been expecting. With an electric surge, the figure sent a sharp wave of both purple and red energy into the rope, which immediately imploded it and sent everyone flying back with a set of shouts. All falling backwards and landing hard, everyone quickly got back upright and glared at the figure, which had now begun to slowly move forwards. Reaching behind itself, the massive force of a being pulled out a large weapon. Although only an outline within the light, it appeared to have been a massive sword to its right hand. With it, there also emerged a type of shield to its left arm. Raising his blade back, the figure slashed downwards and tore open a hole to the pillar's top. With the seal broken, the powerful force fully stepped through, revealing what everyone recognized as some kind of knight. A crystallized red and purple knight, having one thing that halted everyone in their spots. Within its chest, past the tinted marbles of blue like amethyst and ruby shines, was the faint outline of Jay, huddled into a ball and looking to be asleep. In awe of this, everyone began to suddenly take note of the knight's actual features. It was crystallized in design, the same way as Lotus had always been. However, it was more streamlined. It had discernible shapes, a helmet with 6 sharp horns akin to the placements on both Jay's and Void's heads, a hefty chest with a faint spark crest going down its front, sharp shoulder pads, visible leg armor, a crystallized skirt strand, along with both constellations and stars of static buzzing off its body. The horns, lower legs, lower arms, and weapon tips all shimmered Lotus's old red shade, while the head, upper arms, upper legs, chest, and lower weapon halves all shine Jay's familiar purple-blue glints. To make matters worse, Void can now sense both of them, Jay and Lotus, feeling as though they were mixed. And then, that's when it clicked. That's when Void realized what he was looking at. Dear's might. They fused! Jay and Lotus fused! Void exclaimed in disbelief, while then taking notice of 3 strands of light coming out of the knight's back. Lights that extended all the way to the light above, connected to the Beyonders. What? How's that possible? Jida asked, as everyone prepared themselves for a now approaching fight. It's of Jay's design! Pavni suddenly shouted as she reached out and felt for their souls and got a sense for what the being's purpose was. Jay somehow managed to imprison Lotus further as they crossed through here. I'm sensing that this knight is Jay's own barrier to hold the glitch back from the Beyonders. Pavni tried to explain as the massive being grew closer with thundering steps. But they used Lotus to create it. Stretched him out, wore him down into this armor form. However, it's not as strong as it used to be. Lotus is taking back over. That's what the red is. He's corrupting his cage, corrupting Jay. He's losing control. The fox continued to speculate as the knight's eyes flared with a cosmic and glitch-filled power. We gotta get him out then, Jida shouted as she deployed 2 of her flaming blades, and for the first time in a long time, summoned her Inferno face guard back over her mouth. Yeah, if that prick is trying to corrupt him, then we have no choice, Joby bellowed as she rayed her blades alongside Pavnu doing the same. Not what I would call a great first impression, Kor said as he transformed into his monster form. Shit, I didn't expect to fight the kid. I'm not sure about this. T shouted while he readied his axe beside the other reflections. I don't think we have a choice, Vivian exclaimed while readying her frostbiter. So long as we work as a team, we'll save him, Void boasted as V and Chibi readied themselves behind, while Void, with hesitancy, deployed his Nova Blades. Avoid deep strikes! No guns and only slim slashes! We crack it open and get Jay out of there! Once he's out, we destroy the Knight's body with our combined power! Void commanded as the gap between them all was about to close. Hang on, buddy. Just a little more! Void called as the fight for Jay Voidson began. Swinging its blade down, the Knight clashed her sword into the ground, causing an eruption of red and purple cosmic energy to burst. With widening eyes, Void leapt out of the way, but the others weren't so lucky in this evasion. Getting struck back by the energy, Jida and the others were cast aside for the time, leaving only Void to fight his son's infected guard. Spinning with a powerful surge of glitching energy, the Knight clashed down upon Void, causing him to deflect with his Nova Blades in an X shape. Gasping, the spark struggled against the Knight's power as he felt himself getting pushed back by its sheer weight alone. Jay! Buddy! It's me! Don't do this! Void tried the reason as he released a pulse from his horns, which did absolutely nothing against the warrior. In retaliation to this act, the Knight raised his knee and clashed it upon Void's lower face. Before his jaw could be broken, the spark summoned his battle mask, but was still hit with the velocity of a semi-truck's impact. Spiraling back with a grunt, Void hit the ground hard, while the Knight quickly reapproached him without so much as a word. Looking up, Void could see the others finally recovering from their shock, as Core was the first to jump back in. Bellowing a roar, the older Novason tackled the Knight, sending them both down with a powerful and brutal force. As they got back to their feet, Core clenched his clawed fists and began to strike. With a right hook, he clashed the Knight's left shoulder plate, ever so slightly cracking it open. Repeating the process in the opposite way, Core then delivered a left hook, breaking the Knight's arm guard into a cracked state. Reaching forwards, Core attempted to rip the Knight's head off, but was suddenly caught off guard by an extra pair of crystal hands sprouting out of his back. Grabbing the older Spark by his wrists, the Knight began to push the Novason back, shocking everyone as to just how strong this combined soul was. Swinging forward with its head, the Knight clashed in the Core's orange eye, popping it and causing him to roar in pain. Now with the upper hand, the Knight let go of the Novason and clashed his shield upon him, throwing the Spark back and returning him into his normal state. Core! Joby called with worry for her biological dad, as both her and Poffany leapt into the fight. Squinting, the large Knight immediately charged his horns and unleashed a powerful blast that threw the two young adults back and sprawling to the floor. Beezus! Jay! You gotta fight back! You hear me, young man? You gotta fight back! Jida wordly called with tears to her boy, before warping in and strumming her guitar. Blasting outwards from it came several burning sound waves that chiseled away at the Knight's exterior. However, it was still too little to have fully broken it. Releasing a gruff and swinging its blade down upon Jida's side, the Knight looked to have deliberately missed, but still used its erupting energy to send her sprawling back. Freckles! Void called as he leapt up and caught her within his arms. Approaching the married pair with heavy steps, the Knight looked absolutely menacing within the light of creation, as it slowly dragged its massive sword along the ground. Yet, before it could strike again, the fusion was suddenly stopped by a blast of ice to its leg. Turning around, the Knight only caught the split glimpse of Vivian, leaping up and punching him in the face. With such force, it ironically saw stars. Landing with a roll and slide, Vivian with the others watched as T, now with Tiger infused into his body, struck the Knight's head again, causing it to crack and slightly shatter upon its red-eyed side. Rolling back around with his axe, the matter burst slashed it across the Knight's chest, cracking that and sending it tumbling backwards. Take that, QB! T called as V and Vode lunged up and rammed their respective blades into the shoulders of the Crystal Warrior. To this, The knight's eyes flared and unleashed another pulse of its horns, sending the two tall reflections crashing down hard and onto the ground. From this, Chibi bounced off V's shoulder and was left to the knight's mercy. Retracting its shield, the fusion reached down, snagged Chibi by his leg, and then violently chucked him to Vivian and T, sending the three of them crashing in pain. Setting Jida down and getting back to their feet, the two of them, along with Core, charged again. Raising his fist back, Void smashed into the ground, causing an uprising in crystals. From this, it struck the knight's chest, causing it to crack even more. Running up and deploying his Matter Spike blades, Core clashed them upon the knight's shield, leaving it to knock the Nova Sun back again, but not fully. With their signature kick, Jida clashed her foot upon the knight's side, shattering its right shoulder guard, and enraging it even more. Swinging its shield around, the knight smashed Jida back as well, leaving Void growing weary. "Viv!" He then shouted with an idea, while summoning a Nova Rune. Looking up, Vivian took note of what Void was trying to do, and nodded her head. Activating her Frost Spider, the spark fired a wave of its energy into the Nova Rune, freezing it over and into a dangerous yet weak state. Whirling around, the spark caught the side of the knight approaching and instantly clashed the frozen rune into his chest, causing a mixture of ice and crystal shards to fly out into the air. From this, both Core and Void slid back, leaving the knight to clutch its now fully cracked open chest that revealed Jay within. Glaring into the warrior's eyes, Void got ready to strike, but halted as something audible left through the entire being. "I told you to leave." Blinking in shock, Void let his guard drop at the sound of Jay's voice, giving the same message from before. "Leave. Buddy?" The spark asked, as the knight struck Core down with its shield and then kicked Void hard. Launching backwards and through the air, Void went past the arch entrance to the pillar and went down to the bridge. But before he could crash, the spark lashed his hands onto the door sides, let his arms extend, and then slingshot himself right back, kicking the knight in his chest and breaking it open once more. As the knight rolled back, it immediately tried to stand back up, but was halted down by a frozen blast to its hand, hitting it down and sitting upon its knees. Looking to his left, Void watched as Vivian continued to freeze the limb down, while T, with both Tickwood's arms and Tiger's essence, wrapped it up in a tight restraint. Coming in on the right, V, Void, Core, and Chibi all restrained the other arm. Blasting and transforming his limbs onto the knight's other hand, Void created an interlocking seal, while Core extended his dark matter into a gooey restraint. Chibi, however, pulled out an anvil from his pocket and tossed it upon the knight's lap, making it hard for it to fight back. Its horns needed the charge. It had been heavily damaged. If there was any time to rescue Jay, it was now. "Hurry! While it's still down!" Void called towards his wife and daughters as he rushed the struggling knight. Reaching out, both Void and Jida lashed their hands around the crack to the warrior's chest and began to pull. As they did this, their Beyonder energy began to flare up with a mighty light as they pulled against what was essentially their very own power source, if not stronger. Wincing in pain as they all pulled, Void and Jida watched in shock as their red and purple colors were absorbed into the night, returning them back into their natural blue and orange shines. Void, however, was stuck in his black robes for the time being. It appeared that the knight had taken some of their new essences in order to heal itself, but unfortunately on its end, it hadn't been enough. "Hang on, Jay!" Jida bellowed as both Joby and Pavnu joined into the rescue effort. "We have you!" Void called with a returning blue flare as they all pried and shattered the chest open. With cracks and snaps, the gash in the night grew wider and wider. The being struggled, but Core and the reflections kept it down with all their might. Again and again, its gash cracked open. Energy bloomed from its open wound as the entire being began to pulsate between red and purple. With an electric power and spark-induced shout, Void's entire body flared into a beautiful cosmic sapphire shine as he smashed his hands into the night, took hold of his son, and with one powerful pulse, yanked his boy out. As Void did this, the Nova Suns all flew backwards from a releasing explosion of the knight's interior. Vivian, T, and Tiger were launched to the left, Core, Chibi, and the taller Void to the right. For the now empty night, Its seal had shattered apart and went flying over the ledge into 100 pieces and away from everyone who had been holding it down. It was gone. Opening his eyes and deactivating his battle mask with a sharp gasp, Void blinked once, then twice, then looked into his arms, seeing his boy, his unconscious little boy, breathing and at last, safe. Jay. Biomateria! Jay! Void exclaimed in a sense of both relief and dread as he quickly sat upright and cradled his son within his arms. Jay, oh God, Jay. Void continued to say with a quivering tone of voice as he gently shook his son, who looked a bit older now. He would have been 14 by this point, Void realized, as he continued to cradle him. Jay! Jida suddenly exclaimed while crawling up to see her boy. Oh, honey. She wept with her hand to his. Squirt! Joby joined in with Pofnu close by. Pup! The kitten called, as the Noah-san family all surrounded the boy with both worried and happy tears in their eyes. Getting up and making their way over, Core and the Reflections all surrounded the little family, kneeling down to be eye level with them. Oh man, T said as both him and Tiger gazed at Jay over Jida's shoulder. Is the child okay? V nervously asked with a worried glance as Vivian knelt and felt the boy's head with the back of her hand. Temperature feels fine, she stated as Core just eyed his nephew down with a curious yet thankful eye. Reaching out, Joby placed both of her hands upon her brother's sides and gave him a heavy wave of light matter, all in a vain hope to at least get him conscious. Come on, Jay. Wake up. Wake up, buddy. Void whispered as both him and Jida continued to gently shake him. Come on, kid. Void whispered with an uneasy stare as everyone else continued to watch with an uncomfortable gaze, unsure if the boy would awake. One moment passed with silence, then another, no motion of noise, showing that Jay was to awake. For a fleeting moment, everyone began to lose a sense of hope. Until... Opening his eyes with a wince and hack, Jay instantly sat upright from the light matter charge and began wheezing out globs of space-like saliva and sparkles of stardust. His constellations instantly flared with life, while his horns glimmered in a purple haze, while the young spark took in a long and needed breath. Gasping in excited shock, Void, Jida, Joby, and Pofnu all immediately leaned in with audible sobs and embraced Jay into a group hug, leaving everyone else to stand back and sigh with relief and smiles. Jay! Oh my god! Oh my god! Void wept as Jida quietly sobbed with a smile. You're okay. Thank Matira, you're okay. Joby exclaimed in glee, while Pofnu just let silent and relieved tears stroll down her face. Dad? Jay asked as he then began to return to his senses. Blinking, the little spark took in the sight of the pillar's static light, and then the reflections, feeling a strange wave of confusion wash over him. It's us, Jay, it's us. Void repeated with glee as everyone pulled back and gave Jay the space to breathe. It's us, baby. We're here. Jida happily said with a hand to her boy's cheek. Mom? Jay questioned as he rubbed his head. Joby. Pofnu? He then asked with a concerned glare to the ones he had only been seeing in his memories for a long time. Yes, Pup. It's us. We're here. The fox said as Jay continued to look around in awe. What? How did... The small spark continued to ask as his eyes suddenly widened. Oh no. quietly said, while beginning to feel his own body with shaking hands. No. No, 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 no. What'd you do? What'd you guys do? Jay asked, as he then suddenly stood to everyone's shock. What? We saved you. What's wrong, buddy? Void asked his boy, while he and the others stood as well. With a look of fear in Jay's eyes, he turned towards the reflections as well as his uncle, beginning to feel his heart race at a violent speed. No, that fight wasn't an illusion, no. No. What'd you do? What'd you do? Jay asked again with a whirl back to his parents and siblings. Whoa, sweetheart, breathe. What's wrong? Jada asked as a cold sweat poured down Jay's brow. Where's the armor? Where's the knight? Dad, where's the knight? Jay asked with a firm step forward towards his family. Where the hell is Lotus? To this, Void and the others stared with wide eyes upon Jay's words in fear. For a reunion, this was the last thing they had been expecting. Instead of relief from their son, it was panic. Pure panic. Hey, relax, kiddo. That armor thing, whatever he was, we blew it apart into hundreds of little pieces. You ain't gotta worry about him. He's gone. Teased out with a smile and patted Jay's back, causing the little spark's eyes to shrink and him to slowly turn to face his dad's bearded reflection. You what? Jay asked in a serious tone, causing a deep wave of silence to sweep across the large group. As Void got ready to speak again, everyone heard a godly scream echo across the lands. Whirling their heads, the large group all set their sights upon the narrator, being suddenly and tightly restrained by the energy around her body. Within a flash, these glitching vines tightened harder with a blood-red pulse and cracked the mighty god in her place. Not even a second after this, the restraints tightened again with such force that the mighty god was shattered apart into a supernova shade of green energy and falling glass shards. What the fuck? Vivian exclaimed in disbelief as everyone's eyes widened and jaws dropped in absolute astonished horror. The narrator! Cor bellowed in a cold breath as another scream and shatter erupted from behind. Turning around, everyone set their sights upon the designer as he was viciously ripped apart by the glitchy tendrils and reduced to a falling glass and orange wave of power. Oh my god! Jada screamed with her hands to her mouth as the last Beyonder began to call. No. Whirling their heads, everyone watched as the rider, the last Beyonder, was shattered apart like nothing. What did they just... Joey asked with shaking eyes. Are they? How? Void asked in a mind-numbing state as the god's essence began to collect below the pillar. No, I told you to leave! Jay said with a cracking voice to his dad. I had him under control! Looming back down with panicking stares, Void shook his head, while the others continued to watch as their gods, their creators, of all they knew faded to stardust. Jay, I... Felt as though the entire beyond began to shake. The bridge to the pillar crumbled. The light walls fell to mist, revealing the other rings and their many miles of land. The words above even rattled as everyone tried to keep their balance. What's happening? Tiger asked with a worried stare as a familiar sound erupted from below in a loud and echoing chime. What was that? Cor inquired with a wobbly stance, while the Novasun family all felt their stomachs drop in dread. No. Jay whispered. As if to answer his nervous statement, something arose from the world below. Coming up fast in a powerful bright shine, emerged a massive, black glass, sharp, 5-fingered right hand, that ferociously slammed into the pillar's top, getting everyone to turn around and shout in horror.
Oh man! I don't believe it! It's happening! It's really happening!
A familiar yet haunting voice boomed as a left hand appeared and smashed into the pillar, getting everyone to step back and ready their weapons. With the black glass fading between both a red and purple light, the Beyonder's essence looked to be seeping into this new Titan-like force, as it slowly revealed its gargantuan form to all those who could only describe it as monstrous. Rising from the white stardust emerged a dark glass cube the size of a college campus, having 6 floating sharp glass horns around it with a brand new Beyonder eye that swirled with a deadly white light. This being's shoulders were now large, sharp, and rugged, looking akin to the most deadly of mountains one could have ever climbed. Its chest and lower body was designed to look akin to how the Beyonders once did, triangle-shaped and slimmed. In fact, it looked to have been made up from some of the remnants of the Beyonders themselves. Like before, its body was cracked and floaty, but now in a state that had always dreamed of, a state where it could finally achieve its long-time goal. As far as it was aware, it had won. Lotus had won.
Hi everyone! Long time no see! As well as a first time hello! Do you all seriously not come in any other shapes?
Lotus asked with a follow-up cackle as everyone stared up at his terrifying, Titan-sized form. With Jay released, Lotus was able to have finally gotten what he wanted. Void realized that explosion. Was it a fake out? It had to be, he thought, as the Titan-sized glitch leaned down to face the group.
Gee! You ought to be both the bravest yet most stupid soul I've ever had to come to know, Void! Did you really think I wouldn't take the chance? Or was my death act just too good? 2 for 2, eh?
Lotus asked as another laugh escaped his massive white eye.
Whatever. That doesn't matter. What does matter is that thanks to you, I was finally able to destroy those weak-minded creators. And with their essence flowing into my being, I can finally give this Omniverse the mercy it so desperately deserves. It's all thanks to you and your boy, my best friend!
Lotus exclaimed as he pulled back and began to charge his eye into a bright light.
Don't even bother trying to stop me this time, Noah-sons. I am beyond a mere glitch now. I am at last what I was always meant to be. Not just a god, but the creator of all.
Charging his eye up fully, Lotus suddenly aimed down towards the pillar's base and bellowed out one last thing before raining his new hell upon them all.
And it appears that your journey has finally come to its end. Goodbye!
Unleashing a static blast of white light, Lotus destroyed the pillar of creation at its base, ceasing the life-flowing fountain into a dissolving spout of once beautiful energy. Caving way, the pillar began to suddenly shatter apart and crumble as Lotus swung his beam eye up and began blasting it across the sky and all the rings, destroying the Beyonder's lands and shattering the spaces between. The wars in the sky began to fade, while the darkened colors that once only surrounded the pillar scattered outwards, mixing and merging with the now shattering apart rings. The ground beneath began to crack under Lotus's presence, while everyone atop the pillar began to fall. Poimatera! Void exclaimed as he caught Jay and activated his wings. Igniting with her fire, Jaida caught Pavnu as Kor sprouted his wings beside Joby and her thrusters. Leaping forwards, V and Chibi clung on the Vodes now activated flight mode as Vivian activated her back thruster, leaving Tiger to carry her husband down to the ground below. Now evading falling rubble and shattering stones, The group all evaded and dodged from these attacks, as all hell began to break loose from Lotus's rampage. The sky began to crack with static, leaving glitches to once again arise, rather fall. Eruptions of rainbow energy exploded out from shifting cracks in the lands below, all while Lotus continued to eradicate all before him, leaving only a darkened wasteland for everyone as they at last ran to the ground level in a harsh way. Dad! Dad! Opening his eyes with a little gasp, Void found that he had partially passed out upon his landfall. His head pounded with the same beat as his heart, while everything settled back in. Setting his sights upon the beyond, he immediately felt a wave of dread and fear wash over him. Lotus had destroyed so much already. The skies had been ravaged. The grounds also shattered apart with energy leaking into the air, as glitches continue to fall and arise. "Are you okay?" Jay asked with a gentle shake, as Jida, Joby, Pofnu, and Vivian surrounded them both, while all the reflections in core had either been pacing back and forth or watching the destruction unfold. "Dearest might. Oh God." Void whispered as he sat upright while placing a hand upon his boy's shoulder. What have we done?" He then asked upon standing and gazing at the carnage. Within the distance, Lotus swung his beam eye around, smashed the ground beneath him with his sheer presence alone, and left everyone shell-shocked, unable to process what had been done. What are we gonna do? The hell are we gonna do? Tiger asked as she clung on to T's side with fear. "Children. My children!" Cor wordly but angrily gasped, feeling reminiscent upon his time during Salvaheim's fall, caused by the same being no less. "Everything. It's all in danger. Everything we know, the pillar. It was the life giver." V nervously exclaimed as he knelt down and picked up a chunk of the once grand tower. "Without it, life, I don't know what's..." He went on as Chibi audibly gulped from the side. Taking in a short breath, Void looked down to his boy, then at his wife and daughters, and then his sister, before explaining aloud. "Lotus from the start. He'd always talked about wanting to start a new life per se, to wipe all realities clean and start one mainline universe." Turning their heads, Cor, Chibi, V, T, Tiger, and Vode locked their eyes upon Void's returning blue form as he watched his old enemy continue to lay waste in the far-off distance. We just gave him that power," the spark quietly said with empty eyes as he then fell to his knees. "Shay, I'm so... I didn't want..." Before Void could finish, his little boy knelt down and put a hand to his shoulder and spoke aloud with a stern stare. No, I'm sorry. Don't blame yourself. You didn't... You made a mistake," he said, leaving Void to simply gaze upon him with wide eyes. "I'm sorry too. I didn't know for certain if it had really been you all here, just my memories playing tricks. I'm grateful for my rescue, really, but Lotus..." Turning their heads, everyone set their sights upon the Titan, who cackled maniacally towards the destruction he had caused. I was the only one keeping him back from absorbing the Beyonders. Now that he's become one of them, a god, the god. Jay continued to stutter as his mom slowly took a seat beside him. "There's nothing we can do but watch. Is there, my little star?" she asked with a dry tone as everyone looked at each other with worry. No, there is something that can be done. At least I think," Jay revealed as he walked past his dad's reflections and stared on at the new yet false god. What? There is? How? Joby asked as everyone both stood and walked the stand behind the boy as he closed his eyes and flared up his constellations. When me and Pavnu rescued you all from Lotus's soul, I heard and saw something. A weeping. An extra being that I didn't recognize trapped within. Jay gently explained while looking over his shoulder. They were chained up like you guys, but with thorns and matter crystals surrounding their being as well. At the time, I kind of thought that maybe it had been Maple, but with my time spent here with them, I soon figured out that it's Lotus's soul. Or rather, what it's supposed to be. Jay revealed as his family members walked up with stunned eyes. What do you mean, son? Void asked. Yeah, I thought glitches didn't have souls. Jada asked as well, while Joby and the others listened in. Incorrect. If a creature is able to breathe and live, then it does in fact have a soul. Glitches may be errors in existence of life. That doesn't mean they lack natural elements of nature. Pavnu chimed in before turning her sights back upon Lotus's massive form. Miracle of birth applies all the same. Cor stated as Jay continued to look on ahead. With my time shared around the glitch, I could sense that his soul, given by his nature, was never able to properly flourish. Lotus isn't what he was meant to be. He's a fake. An angry persona bloomed out of the soul's inability to fully grow. Whoever or whatever his soul may actually be, it's always been innocent, scared and mad that it couldn't become what it was destined to be. It's sad. It never wanted any of this. It never wanted to do what Lotus wanted. It wants to break free, to end the nightmare. To these words, Void walked up and rested his left hand over Jay's shoulder and nodded down to him with a curious stare. A trapped soul. What are you getting at here, my son? Flicking back up to his father, Jay clenched his fists and suddenly summoned pieces of cosmic blue armor over his arms, legs, and shoulders, all labeled with a purple spark crest. If we break the soul free, Lotus will have nothing to hold him together. He will fall, for good. Jay stated, leaving everyone stunned by both his words and new armor. How do we reach this soul, sweetheart? Jada asked with a kneel, leaving Jay to point ahead and at the bright white eye of Lotus. You've got to be kidding me. Joey stated as T took a step forwards and he thought. Interesting. This is familiar for me. When I fought the memory storm all those years ago, I had to jump into its eye as well, and there I fought the soul. From it, I gained my J. Granted, it wasn't to this scale, but... He explained as V stood right beside him with a familiar memory. Then there is a chance that this may not be the end. He said with confidence, while placing his hand over his fellow Matterver's shoulder. Walking up, Vivian deployed her back thrusters before eyeing down her siblings in a stern gaze. Looks like we're gonna have to fly, she said, leaving both Void, Jida, and the others to nod. Well, I've always wanted to fight a Titan, Void revealed as he transformed into his flight mode. Upon doing this, he sent a pair of his limbs to V's back, giving him a jetpack while giving a foot to Chibi, creating another one for him. Yes, I can sense it. The eye is a gateway into Lotus's soulscape. The only lethal thing we need to worry about is when he charges up, or if he swats at us like flies. Pavnu stated as Joby activated her thrusters and scooped her sister up into her arms. Well, sounds like a bad idea, but I'm all about bad ideas. She replied as Tiger fused with T and gave him the ability to fly. I know it seems mad, but I need you guys to trust me on this. Can you do that? Jay asked towards specifically his father, cracked the tiniest of smiles and nodded. Of course, son. But if we're about to fly headfirst into danger, you're gonna need this," Void stated as he summoned out his battle mask to his hands and handed it to his boy. Smiling at this gesture, Jay reached out, looking to be taking the battle mask. Instead, he gently pushed it back to his old man. "Thanks, Dad. That mask is better suited for you. Not sure if you could tell, but I've been thinking of my own look while away. Something more me," Jay said as he suddenly summoned a cosmic space knight-shaped helmet over his head. One that was rounded with a triangle mouthguard, glowing visor, and tiny fin going across its scalp and back, added with the same purple accents upon his legs and arms. "What'd you think?" Smiling, Void nodded his head towards his son, before setting his battle mask back over his own face, returning its visor to a set of blue eyes. "Badass," he answered. With another thundering boom, Lotus slashed his I-beam across the sky, causing it to shatter further and for more glitches to fall. Upon seeing this, Void activated his wings and picked up his son, who nodded his head with a ready manner. "Orb Assault! Keep your heads high and focused. Aim for the eye," Void called as he suddenly blasted up and into the air, with Jida in tow. Behind them, Joby soared along with the reflections, leaving Core the Gruff sprout his wings and follow suit. Going as fast as they could, everyone flew up and followed behind the married pair, as they led the charge towards the false god. With anger and determination in their hearts, they all soared around falling sky shards, while even evading what they realized had been Hellhawks. Upon seeing this, Jay suddenly warped out of his dad's arms and rested upon his back in a crouched position. Before Void had time to ask, Jay suddenly summoned out a smaller version of the knight's sword to his right hand and a shield to his left, being strictly blue and purple. Leaping forwards with another warp, Jay sliced through a Hellhawk before summoning his Nova Runes below his feet. Using these, he rushed several more with swift slashes and clashes. In awe, everyone watched in shock as Jay twirled through the air, spinning as though he were an elegant bird of flight. With another leap off a rune, he charged his horns and unleashed a condensed purple pulse that destroyed the last of the birds of prey. In absolute astonishment, Void and Jida both smiled upon their son, as they weren't sure as to what had happened within that mindscape he was stuck within, but it had definitely made him stronger, faster, and more confident, like a true spark. "He so gets that from me," Jida said with a smile, leaving Void the side-eyer. "You kidding? That's all me," he exclaimed. "Oh, stop it. He's the best of both your worlds," Joby exclaimed as Jay warped back to right atop his dad's back. "That you are, Jay. That you are," Void said with a smile behind the mask as Jay did the same. Slowly turning his massive head, Lotus set his sights upon what he considered to be a swarm of pests. Even after achieving his ultimate goal, the Glitch King couldn't believe that the mortals would even attempt it.
Do you ever give up?"
He asked with a sway in his head and release of his beam. To this, everyone evaded and swirled around the strike as they neared ever closer to the Titan. Turning and swinging his massive arm, Lotus attempted to swat the group, but given his newfound size, it was almost impossible to get a regular hit in. They were smaller than flies, approaching him like the swarm of locusts they were in his eye.
"You truly believe you can beat me in this state? You are all fools, Nova Sons. Surrender and submit to the new age,"
Lotus called in his booming voice as Orb Assault all dove down and back up upon the side of the king's front. "Sorry, buddy. Your reign of terror ends today," Void exclaimed as they all soared past another swinging hand and went all the way up into the beast's front face. Before Lotus even had time to register what they had been doing, Void and Jida spun upwards and shot forwards. Closing their eyes, they crossed through into Lotus's eye, which in truth was indeed like a portal. Following after went Core and the other reflections, leaving Lotus shell-shocked and clawing at his face, stunned and confused as to what had just happened.
"Hey! Where'd you go? Where'd you go, you little freaks?"
he called, while swinging his massive arms wildly in rage. Landing together side by side, Jay, Void, Jida, and all the others came to a halt within a stark contrast as to what they had been expecting. Unlike last time, when Lois' soulscape was just darkness, it was now bloomed to life with red, yellow cosmic stars floating around them at all angles. The ground they stood upon was now a crystallized white, looking akin to the same texture of a pearl. Crystals of the same kind of material sprouted everywhere, some small, some large, while thorns looked to be jutting out from their sides. However, it was then everyone set their sights forwards and locked it upon the soul. Just as before, a glowing form was entangled within chains, thorns, and spikes. However, it had now taken the shape of a white ball, shimmering to signify that it was now in a much weaker state. "There it is!" Jay called, as gentle weeps emanated from its essence. A soft, sad weeping that screamed of innocence trapped in a world of hell. Before the others could form a plan, the young spark quickly sprinted towards the soul with sheer desperation to free it. Upon seeing this, Void and Jida reached out and called, "Wait!" to this action. As they did this, white crystals, thorns, as well as chains suddenly arose on the ground and entangled not just them, but Joby, Povnu, Kor, and all the other reflections, sending them shouting and onto their knees. "What the hell?" Vivian exclaimed as the others all grunted in pain, leaving Jay to whirl around and stare with wide eyes through his helmet. "Guys!" he exclaimed before getting halted by a nasty voice.
Oh, Jay. Sweet and innocent little Jay. When are you gonna grow up?
Turning back around, the small spark watched as the trapped soul's cage suddenly arose and took the shape of a red, shackled, and spiked form of Lotus, looking to be a ghost of cosmic proportions.
When will you and your pathetic little family learn to hang the blades up and accept that no matter what you do, forces like me would inevitably rise to kill your next little friend?
Lotus asked as he returned back to his original voice, as Jay took a step back and readied his weapons. All the others struggled to fight back.
When will your wars end? When will you accept that you can't save anything?
Lotus continued to boast while raising his arms up.
You, your mother and father have been a thorn in my side for the last time. All because I destroyed one little world.
Furrowing his brow, Jay readied his sword and shield and glared upon who he had once considered as a friend, feeling nothing but hatred in his heart. You didn't just destroy Salvaheim, but countless realities. You've ruined lives, torn families apart, destroyed friendships. Jay said as a tear rolled down his eye, remembering back to Maple's happy face. This ends now. The little spark exclaimed as he clashed his sword and shield together, igniting them both to life in a powerful flare.
And the cycle continues.
Lotus replied as the two quickly rushed and struck upon one another. Swinging downwards, Jay violently smashed his sword into Lotus' swinging fist, creating a shockwave of both red and purple light. As the two began to commence their fight, Void and his reflections began to release pulses from their horns, which slowly but surely began to shatter away the crystals they had been trapped within. Slashing and clashing with warps and kicks, Jay and Lotus spun through the air in a beautiful haze of purple and red energy that was equivalent to the most glorious of star shines. The little spark was now ignited like a bright lantern. His entire body glowed with a lavender haze as he continued to battle Lotus. Gruffing, the spectral form of the Glitch King reared his fist back, then smashed it down upon Jay, causing him to drop his weapons and stumble back to the ground. Shouting but quickly rolling back up, he charged a wave of energy to his hands and blasted back forwards in a mighty pulse of cosmic fire, proceeding to give his mother's signature kick into the cube's head. Gruffing, Lotus spun back and then shot a beam from his eye. To this, Jay ducked down and entered into his spin dash move. With this, he clashed into Lotus again with another following stumble, making the glitch absolutely furious. Smashing his hands into the ground, Lotus created an uprising of spikes that Jay quickly warped away from.
You are a fool, child. There is no winning this fight. I am a god. Don't you understand that?
Lotus asked, leaving Jay to land and slide backwards with a smirk. Yeah, so's my mom. He replied with a little point. To this, Lotus suddenly turned around and was met with a burning fist of fury that violently clashed into his eye. Damn right! Jada exclaimed as she spun around and slid to a stop by her son. Gasping, the glitch turned upon Jada Woods with a furious expression, when Void suddenly launched in with his wings boosting him. Shouting with an electric fury, the spark stabbed both of his Nova Blades into the chest of Lotus, causing him to whirl and scream. Locking his singular diamond eye with Void's blue glare, the arch enemies spun themselves around as Void unleashed surges of burning power into Lotus' spiritual body, looking to crack it apart. It doesn't matter if you're a god. You're just a weak piece of glass that got his ass handed to by a 12-year-old. Void boasted with a hefty headbutt upon Lotus' eye. Our dance ends tonight, old friend. Void finished with a smirk as he then charged his horns and blew Lotus off and away from his body. As the glitch went flying through the air, Core ran up, transformed into his beast form, and tail smacked the king down in a violent force, shattering him more and leaving him shouting,
You destroyed my school, murdered my children, set me down a path of no redemption. I will never allow you to harm anyone else ever again.
Core boasted with fury as he blasted a Nova Beam out from his healed eye. Countering the blast, Lotus fired back, creating a beam lock between the two of them. However, before one could get the upper hand, T leapt up, unhooked his conch shell, and blew into it, releasing a sound wave upon Lotus' body to everyone's surprise. To this call to sea, Lotus rolled away, leaving both V and Vogue to run up with their weapons readied. With this, they slashed down upon Lotus' back, shattering his spirit form apart even more.
How are you?
The glitch cried out as Vivian ran up and smashed her fist into the ground, creating an uprising of ice shards that struck Lotus' back. Teamwork. You ever hear of it? She asked as both Pawvnu and Joby leapt upwards and combined a golden and red clash down upon the glitch's body. As the monster hit the ground once more, GB ran up, pulled out his mallet, and smashed it across the glitch's face, sending him sprawling back once again. Booyah! The little guy called, as Lotus got back up and released a pulse of rage, blowing everyone back again.
Enough! You are fools! You can't win this!
Lotus shouted as he raised his arms, causing waves of lightning to strike at the world below him. Evading, Orb Assault all dodged but didn't lose their confidence. They would win this, no matter what it took. You're wrong, Lotus. Unlike you, we have the one thing that you would never even have the concept of understanding. Jay called a smirk as he warped up and punched the glitch back down in a powerful purple pulse. Love. Lil Spark stated, as Void leapt up and slashed a deep cut into the glitch's chest. Love for those that we lost, and for those we honor, he exclaimed as Jida strummed her guitar upon the king. Love for those still around us, she called as Joby ran up with a light matter slash. For our friends, she said, as Pawvnu leapt in with a tail pulse and slashing gash into Lotus's chest again, making the wound even larger. For our family, she called as Jay jumped back in with a punch. For our world, he called as the glitch was suddenly jumped by everyone. You're nothing but a husk imprisoning an innocent life. You are the furthest thing from a god, V called as him, T, and Tiger smashed their fists into the glitch's arm, shattering it apart with ease. You're a heartless monster with no remorse, Vogue called as he cut Lotus across the face with his spear. Glitch, that's all you'll ever be, T exclaimed while Vivian leapt up with a twirling kick, smashing the monster onto his hands and knees. Just a brat, she spat, as everyone approached the beast, who was now looking to be leaking with energy. Nothing. That's all you are, Lotus. Just an embodiment of your true being's sorrow, trying to make a terrible purpose. Jay stated as he stood in front of everyone, who now glared at the glitch with a raising head. He gruffed out with an angry eye that suddenly began to buzz out and change. With quick flashes and buzzes, Lotus's eye turned into a face, one that nobody had ever seen before, as something within the monster's living cage began to resonate. Now staring back at Orbisol were a pair of small little eyes with eyelashes alongside a tiny mouth in a quivering shape. From it, the glitch spoke again. However, it wasn't him who came through. It was an entirely different person. This was the soul, the one who Lotus was supposed to be. Help me, it said with a soft, feminine voice that sounded absolutely scared. Without hesitation, Jay lunged forwards and plunged his hands deep into it. As he did this, the monster's face returned to normal, but everyone was quick to act. Reaching out, they all pinned Lotus down as Jay gripped the soul orb within. Screaming, the monster tried to fight back, but the little spark was far from giving up.
No! Now what are you doing? Stop it! Stop that! Stop!
Lotus shouted as Jay's entire body ignited with purple life. Digging his heels into the ground, the little spark pulled and pulled, until suddenly, getting help from his father. I have you! Void called as he too reached in and gripped onto the soul. Together, both father and son, with one final heave and shout, ripped the life essence from the monster's confines, leaving it to scream and for everyone to be engulfed in light. With a heavenly blast of power, all of Orbisol was thrown back down to the ground outside the Lotus Titan that suddenly halted in place. Freezing like a statue, the massive beast's flowing source of color suddenly faded. Its eye dissolved with light, and its limbs, they all began to go limp. Mere moments after this, the massive being that had once essentially been God began to slowly crumble apart. Its limbs began to fall. Its head swayed to the side, and in turn brought the large beast down, leaving all of Orbisol to look up, watch, and brace for impact. As this Lotus form hit the world, a massive gust of dust arose and immediately clouded everyone on the lower levels. Gasping behind his mask, Void began to look around through the dense cloud, watching as all of it collected and then gently began to fade. The air was warm and cold, but the chaos, all of it had ceased to be. Slowly walking forwards, the spark encountered Jida first, and then his daughters, waving through the smoke. Hey, you okay? The musician asked. Fine. Where are the others? Void questioned. Over here, Core answered, as him and the other reflections approached, leaving only one missing. Jay? Jay! Void nervously called as he began to walk ahead. Jay! Jida exclaimed, as all the others did the same. Trudging through the murky smoke for a good few moments, it didn't take long for it to finally and fully clear. And last, revealed Jay, kneeling on the ground with his back turned. Jay! Void asked. Hey! Are you okay? Looking over his shoulder, Jay, who now had his helmet off, took in the sight of everyone behind him, and then turned back down. Slowly, he stood and took in a breath, replied with a dense, Yeah, I'm, he quietly spoke, while looking to be holding on to something within his arms. Sweetheart? Jida asked, as everyone got closer with curiosity in their hearts. Yeah, just, well... Jay answered back as he fully turned himself around and revealed what he had been holding. I'm not good at holding these, he said, as everyone now saw that Jay was carrying a baby. It was a cube-headed, red crystal creature baby, soundly asleep within his arms. With their eyes widening to this, everyone could see that the baby resembled Lotus. However, it had been a completed being as opposed to a shattered mess. Their body was shimmering a soft red shine, having the chubby appearance of your average newborn. Around its head, 6 little floating chunks levitated, looking akin to Void's and Jay's horns. It was the soul having taken its form, to that of what could only be described as the most innocent thing of all life, a newborn. By Matira, Void whispered in disbelief, as Jida was the first to approach. It's, I think it's a girl, Jay revealed, as Jida then quickly scooped the baby into her arms, with her motherly instincts taking over in full. Oh, by the gods! Look at her! This little thing was stuck within that monster? This whole time? Jida asked, as she cradled the infant close, allowing for the baby to hear her heartbeat. How could this little thing have been Lotus? Void asked in shock, as he and the others all surrounded the baby, who then opened her eyes and giggled. Wow. I never thought that something as terrifying as Lotus could look cute, Joby stated, as Jay crossed his arms and thought. Again, guys, it's not Lotus. She's an entirely different being. Jay reinstated with concern as Void gently brushed the side of his hand against the infant's cheek, which left the little one to reach up and hold onto his finger. Locking his eyes with hers, Void saw no ill intent, no rage, no evil, no glitch, just a curious stare of a little baby. To this, he gave a small smile, feeling reminiscent as to when Jay was a baby. But she looks almost one-to-one with him. Are you sure? T asked as he took off his cap and scratched the back of his head. Even though she's different, the soul must have only been able to manifest what its current body had been designed as. It's not her fault she resembles that monster, Pavnu explained as the little cube girl yawned and then nuzzled into Jida's side, leaving her to blush and hold the baby close. There, little one. We have you. It's okay. You're safe now, the musician whispered while giving the baby a small kiss to her forehead. Looking back up, Jida locked her eyes with her husband and stared with a burning realization. Blue, we can't leave her here, she said, the Voids nodding agreement. I know, Freckles. I know, Spark replied as he gently brushed his hand against the baby again. This isn't my monster. I'm smart enough to know that. This is just a child, an innocence that it's gonna need a family. Void went on before looking back up to Jida. What do you want to call her? To this, the musician smiled and then glanced at Tiger, who smirked and nodded her head down upon realizing what Jida had been thinking. There had really only been one option, one that seemed to remain as a multiversal constant. Jane, Jida's daughter. Jida expressed with a little smile, leaving Void nodding his head. Oh yeah, we got another girl! Let's go! Joby shouted with excitement as both her and Pavnu gave each other a high five. "Hey, don't leave me out of this," Vivian stated as she walked up, wrapped her arm around Joby, and gave her a nookie. To these statements, everyone began to chuckle and smile, with Void wrapping his arm around Jay. "Well, looks like it's still just going to be us and Gluppy, bud," he said with Jay chuckling in response. "I'm fine with that. I'm just happy that I get to go home," he replied, as everything at long last seemed to be at peace. Until a figure began limping from the dust.
"You have ruined everything that I was meant to rule, to fix. You, all of you."
Turning their heads and activating their respective weapons, everyone watched in shock as a frail, shattered, limping, grayed-out form of Lotus stumbled into the light, with a weak and flashing eye for all to see.
"All of you. You couldn't let go of anything in your pathetic lives,"
Lotus weakly called as he fell onto his hands and knees before the group. Stepping forwards while now retracting their weapons, everyone looked down upon the pathetic form of who was once a monster, a king, a demon, a dark memory, a false god, and so much more. A being that caused so much pain for so many years, now crumbled like a weak soul with no hope to be spared.
"Do you realize what you have all done?"
Lotus asked as he weakly pointed towards his enemies of many years.
"You have destroyed the only force in keeping a stable balance within the Omniverse,"
he boasted, as both Void and Jay now stood over the glitch with tired eyes.
"You all have no idea what you have done.
Lotus called as his body, instead of turning into a cube, began to fade away to dust, just as V's Lotus had. Without a soul, the king couldn't survive.
Your cycle with me may now end, Nova Sons, but not with whatever may come for you next."
Lotus continued with his words as he now stared up towards the shattered sky that began to slowly tear itself apart even more.
"You and your family, with the action upon my end, you have all now jeopardized all forms of creation."
Were the last words Lotus shared as he closed his diamond eye, and at last, after years of torment, years of never-ending battles, nightmares, and pain, the Glitch King that had caused all of this faded to dust and was at last gone. For a long few moments, everyone just stared upon Lotus's fading remains as an odd and uneasy sense washed over them all. They were truly relieved that he was gone, yes, but his final words, jeopardized all of creation? That didn't sound good. No, it was a harrowing last message, a fearful one that left everyone wondering as to what he had meant. And yet, their answer came right after. With a sudden surge of unimaginable power, the skies of the beyond split apart into a broken eruption of colors. The ground began to shift. Gravity was now non-existent, as the center of what had been everything in Void's Omniverse suddenly began to collapse. What's happening? Jaya shouted with fear, all while the winds began to pick up and the world tear itself apart.
"Oh God, without a Beyonder, there's no control over the realm. Everything's gonna fall apart!"
Kor exclaimed as a massive wave of light suddenly blasted out in a steaming cloud that sent everyone scattering into the air. Did we just destroy everything? Vivian asked in a panic. Zell rose high up and into the air within cosmic winds.
"Oh shit!
Joey screamed out as a gust of wind suddenly blew her away from view.
Zombie!
Core exclaimed with fear before he too was thrown into the chaos and disappeared from view.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
D called as both him and Tiger were violently blown away and into the shattering world. Now spiraling out of control, everyone began to panic as one by one they were blown apart from one another and scattered. Vode and V disappeared, and then Pofnu and Vivian, leaving only Void, Jida, Jay, and Jane visible to the eye. Void! Jida bellowed with the reach before both her and Jane disappeared from sight. Freckles! The spark called in a panic before focusing on Jay, who was reaching out. Shooting his arms forward, Void caught his son and pulled him in close as the world continued to shift and change into a chaotic light. Color swirled, stardust sprayed, as all the beyond was reduced to what could only be described as an omniversal hurricane. Dad! Jay bellowed as Void held him in close. I have you, buddy. I have you. I'm not letting you go. Void assured as he pulled Jay in as close as he physically could. Tira, please. Matira, please. Void called as the winds roared violently into his ears. Please. Please. The spark continued to call to his maker, being unsure of whether or not this would be it. He was unaware if it had just been the beyond that was like this, or if it had been all of reality itself. He hoped not, as he gripped Jay even tighter. Dad, I'm scared! Jay whispered, as Void just held his little boy close. I am too, buddy. I am too! He replied, as it felt as though a warm light engulfed them both. It was a comforting sense amidst the chaos, a sense of hope, of peace, as the feeling washed over the two sparks. They braced for the worst, as it all last faded to black. Awakening to a small tickle upon his face, Void opened his eyes to see a tiny green butterfly looking down upon him. Blinking, he slowly sat upright with a gruff and gently shooed the small creature off. Looking on ahead, he was surprised to see that he was in fact alive. Looking down at himself, he was still in one piece and resting within a nice patch of soft grass. Beside him, to his surprise, was everyone else, now all sitting upright in a similar manner. Blinking with Jane still in her arms, Jida looked to Void as he was cast in a beautiful sunset shine that went across the lands. Within her arms, Jane giggled and cooed, having been saved as well. Blue? The musician asked, with flowing hair as both Pofnu and Joby awoke as well. Oh, my head. The light matter girl exclaimed, as at last Jay awoke as well, rubbing his head too. Oh, man. What was... The young Void son asked as he looked up and met the gaze of his family, which all instantly embraced moments after. No words were needed. No calls of triumph, no sobs. Just the moment was all that was needed. Just a moment. Matira. Thank Matira. Void asked as he lifted his head up and took notice of his reflections. Core, and even the children from the refuge, all standing up and all in front of the darkened outline of Aurora City within the sunset. They had reappeared on the outskirts of the city, a forest ledge that was divided by flowing rivers. Neon lights soon began to flash on within the city, as cars honked as per standard, for it was their Aurora. Good old Aurora, before everyone's sight. We're home, Jida whispered, as the sound of Core's cackling was heard. Kids! Thank Matira! He called, as everyone turned to see him getting tackled and hugged by Jojo, Ironhoof, Mori, Cat, and Yerrick, alongside several others they didn't recognize. The children made it, Vivian said as all the reflections grew back together. We all did, T added as both him and Tiger held hands. I'm detecting that we are back in Void's Aurora. About 5 o'clock p.m., I'd say. Void speculated as V stood and crossed his arms with Chibi close on his back. Yeah, sure, buddy, the little guy said as he looked to gently begin falling asleep. Hey, not to ruin the happy moment or anything, but were those cracks in the sky always there? V expressed as he pointed to several large yet slim cracks that looked to have form above within the cosmos, emanating a beautiful form of color. To this, Void's family all squinted at what ultimately looked to have been harmless slashes. The spark didn't feel threatened by it, or thrown off. As far as his senses were saying, these were natural. No, but they weren't there before, Spark said as he and everyone else stood up.
Alert! Alert! New reality shift detected. Repeat. New reality shift detected.
Void's arm exclaimed, causing him to rear around and open its holographic settings, which revealed a stunning sight to behold. Whoa. Okay. Void stated as he, his family, and Reflections all watched the map of the Omniverse, now looking to be both spinning and mixing in all kinds of directions. Realities were now to be joining together, some taking new shape. What they were seeing, it wasn't exactly chaos, but a new shift within the natural order of how things would work going forwards. The Beyonders are dead. There's no control now, Core stated as he walked with the kids by his side and having his own map activated as well. The stable order has now been thrown into an unpredictable spiral. Realities are no longer hindered by the natural law. Our actions, or rather, transgressions, have given everything in our Omniverse free will, Core explained as he closed the hologram. Those cracks are because of us. It's all fractured now. There's no telling what the future could bring. It's as though we have brought the beyond to everyone's doorsteps, Core finished, leaving everyone stunned. Free will? Man, our parents would have killed us if they were still here, Void said as everyone continued to look on at the now star-cracking skies, which left everyone in a state of wonder. Barriers are broken. Anything's possible now, both good and bad. That's a little scary, Jay said, all while Jane just continued to look up at the stars with them twinkling in her innocent eyes. So, does that mean we're screwed, or? Joby asked, with Jay taking a small step forwards. No. If this is the Omniverse's free will, then eventually, one day, nature will find its way and restore itself. Sure, we may have to deal with some possible occurrences down the line, but I think we'll be just fine, Jay said with hope in his heart as he looked back to his family. See, now that's optimism. Gotta have more of that in life, Poffney said with a pat toward Pop's back, leaving everyone feeling a tad better about it all. Yeah, I mean, it seems as though our realities are just neighboring portals away now. Perhaps this is the start to a well-needed age of siblinghood. Because if I'm being honest, I've come to friggin' love you guys, T shouted as he reached his arms out and embraced Vode, Chibi, V, and Vivian into a tight hug, causing the Novasuns, Tiger, Core, and the others to all chuckle. Ew, your beard's touching my face, Vivian exclaimed as T continued to hold them all close with uncomfortable faces. Having these guys close by? Now that I can get behind. Would you guys agree? Voight asked as he looked at his wife and kids, who all smiled in response. I haven't got to really know any of them, but they seem chill. Who's the orange guy, by the way? He looks badass. Jay asked, leaving Cor with a smile and nod his head.
I am Cor Novason, your uncle. It's a pleasure to finally meet you, Jay.
Cor revealed, causing Jay's jaw to drop. What? He asked, as Voight quickly stood before him. We've got a lot of catching up to do for you, kiddo. But if you were to ask me, I think we need to start at your heart. Voight said as he pulled out Florence's flower and handed it to Jay. Your friends, they've been waiting for you, especially Florence. Voight stated, leaving Jay's eyes to perk up wide with excitement. His friends, he thought. The trash pack. It had been so long. With his knowledge, Jay took the flower and held it close. There was so much he needed to do, so much he needed to catch up on. If Jay was being honest, all he really needed now was a long night's rest. Is it alright if we could save it for tomorrow? I am exhausted. The little spark said, as Voight and the others nodded their heads. Of course. Let's go home. Voight said to his family's agreeing minds, all the while T and the reflections all tussled with one another in laughing spouts. Although things would be drastically different in terms of all reality, Voight and the others were just thankful to have Jay back. Besides, if a new threat were to come, he and the others would be ready to stop it, just as he had promised to do all those years ago. Oh, come on, guys. This photo has got to be perfect. Florence had the Sprinkles, AJ, ZB, and Blippi as they all organized a set of flowers within a mud patch, one that had been within their abandoned skate park. The sun had begun to set, leaving the cracks in the sky to continue on shimmering in a beautiful light, as the teens all tried to make the flowers look their best. We're trying our best here, Flo. I know photography is like one of your big things, but cut us some slack, hee-haw. ZB retorted, as the wolf took in a long breath and swayed her tail to the side. I know, I'm really trying to leave my mark this summer in the school book, you know? The wolf replied as she held a flimsy brick camera within her paws. If you have suggestions, by all means, do tell me. The wolf then asked, getting Sprinkles to perk up with a thought. We could create our own lighting. It is getting dark. To do something creative. She threw out with a glance at Florence. How about we throw in some action figures? Give it the dear I minimize the kid feel. AJ suggested, getting ZB the cackle. You're such a nerd, she said, until another voice suddenly called from behind. What if you were to set up a watering pot beside it, to give it more of a retro feel? Sideways photo and all, Perking up to this, Florence nodded her head and got ready to take a test photo, liking the idea a lot, actually. Oh, thanks, Jay. That's a great idea. I'll try it after I take this. Slowly lowering her camera with chills running over her skin, Florence's irises shrunk while everyone else jolted upright. Looking past the wolf, they all gasped with shocked faces, leaving the purple-furred girl to slowly turn as well. There's no way, she told herself. It was impossible. It couldn't be. She screamed within, but upon fully making her turn, she dropped her camera and covered her mouth in absolute disbelief. There, standing with the flower in his hand, Jay, with teary eyes, smiled and waved, greeting his shell-shocked friends for the first time since he had left. Yeah, it's a good idea, right? Jay stuttered, trying his best to not laugh, and burst out into complete sobs. In a way, he felt to do both, but for the others, it had all been tears. Jay! Jay! Florence wept with rivers of tears as she suddenly lunged forwards and tackled the spark into a hug. Spinning around in each other's arms, the two kids held each other close with melting emotions before collapsing to the ground. Silently sobbing with happy hicks, Florence nearly dug her claws into the spark's skin as she pressed her head into his chest, leaving Jay to just hug back with silent tears. Running over and joining in the hug, the rest of the trash pack embraced their lost member, while being left in a state of absolute shock. Jay! Oh my god! Oh my god! Sprinkles wept as she looked upon him with a happy and wet face. You're back! You came back! Oh, you got taller too! Zeeby exclaimed while Blippi cried in silence. Jay! Jay Voidson! I don't believe it! It's you! It's really you! AJ boasted with heartfelt words as he reached up and took the goggles off his head. I kept them safe, just as you asked! He exclaimed, leaving Jay to chuckle and take hold of his old item that had now looked to no longer fit him. You crazy coon. Thank you. Jay happily thanked as he reached out and rubbed AJ's head. Leaning and pressing her head forwards, Florence rested it upon Jay's forehead, while wrapping the two of them together within her tail. Locking eyes, the wolf and Spark felt a wave of butterflies in their stomachs and flushes of glee to their cheeks, as Florence just firmly held the Spark close at her side, feeling a wave of happiness she hadn't felt in oh so long. I've missed you. She weeped out, leaving Jay to just hold her close in their tight embrace. And I missed you too. All of you. Jay replied as the sun set from afar casted a loving light down upon the, for the most part, reunited trash pack. Within the city of Rio de San Rico, an afternoon sun cast itself over the beach and mountain-filled environment, while also carrying its light into a nearby apartment house, one where both Atlas and Evelyn had taken residence. Come on, Comet. You can do it. Say dada. Atlas asked down to his daughter, as he sat on the living room floor with his little girl sitting in between his four spider-like legs. Apple. Comet replied, leaving Atlas wincing. No, say dada. Da. He asked again, while raising his arms up. Da. Comet mumbled. Yes, there it is, he said with a smile. Happo! The little spark said, leaving Atlas throwing his head back in dismay. Oh, god damn! Darn! I said darn! The four-legged spark called to the kitchen, where Evelyn was making lunch. I heard you. She said with a smile, while putting some sandwiches on 3 plates. Baby, our kid is gonna drive me mad. How does she get Hapu from Dada? Alice asked, getting Comet to shout out again. Hapu! No, not... Ugh. The spark groaned while slamming both his hands into his face. Oh, relax, honey. She's not even 4. Give her some time and she'll come around. Evelyn replied as she closed the cabinet with her tail. I guess you're right. Alice replied when a knock suddenly came from their door. "What? Who in Matira's name?" Alice asked as he gently set his daughter aside and stood up to his full height. "Probably just the mailman, hon," Evelyn replied as Alice approached the door. "Mail comes on Sunday. It's Friday," the Red Spark replied as he opened the door. "May I help you?" Falling to shocked silence, Atlas suddenly looked down, seeing Core. The older Nova Son had now been equipped with a fresh mechanical body, one smoothed out and robed akin the Voids and Jobies, who had been accompanying him on this decision. In silence, Core and Atlas locked eyes as Evelyn then walked in carrying her plate of food. "Hey, is everything all..." Holding in shock, Evelyn dropped her plate, causing it to shatter upon the floor. After this, she raised both her hands and covered her mouth, while Core silently looked to his two old friends. I know what you're going to say. How are you alive? Get out of our lives, Core. Never come back. I know. But if you would allow me to..." Core began as his two friends now stood side by side in a state of disbelief. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything I've done, what I've put you two through. I should have been better," Core said with a shaking head and teary-eyed face. I shouldn't have. What I've done, I can't fix that. Core went on as he gazed down at his friend's silent stares. "Have you nothing to say? No attacks? No insults? I'm sorry. Atlas, Evelyn, Without warning, the married spark suddenly lunged forwards and embraced Core into a tight and teary-eyed hug. In shock, the older Nova Son was left stunned until he glanced with a wince towards Atlas and the Evelyn as they both rubbed their heads upon his. To this, the older Nova Son closed his eyes and embraced the care from his friends, leaving Void and Joby to smile and for Comet to curiously gaze upon this new figure. "Apu?" she asked as the three slumped to the ground within each other's arms. And then boom! Explosions! Terror! They were like, "This is the end for you, Phantom." And I was like, "Nuh-uh," and Mom, you've told this story hundreds of times. You gotta think of something new one of these days. Jay said with a chuckle, as him, Jida, Jane, Void, Joby, Povnu, and Vivian all sat upon the very rooftop where the Spark and Angel got to know one another. Within their hands, they all chowed down on some pizza while chilling in their regular civilian clothes, except for Void, who is now wearing a new set of blues and whites, and Vivian, who just relaxed in her casual shorts. Oh, come on! Jane and Vivian haven't heard it yet! It's a cool story and you know it. Jida snapped back to her son while bouncing little Jane up and down, who now held onto the teddy bear the musician had recovered within V's mall. To be fair, love, Jane can't understand anything outside of her name. Well, Vivian, Voight said as he glanced over to his sister, who looked to be enjoying the city's vibe. She's just enjoying the moment, he happily expressed, as Joby rested upon his side. Oh, fine. You haven't heard the last of it, though. Isn't that right? Jida said as she now tickled her fourth child, which giggled and reached out for her hair. As the skies had returned back to their orange shades, the Novasun family, at long last, had found themselves to be at peace. They were all together, the world was safe, and the little group had expanded into a rather large team, one of not just Aurora, but those from neighboring realities. It was good, they all thought. It was so good. And that's all they could have asked for. Say, who wants to try a crack at my riddles? Void asked, getting both Joby and Pofny to groan. We never get these right. Joby called, leaving Void and Jaya to chuckle. Well, too bad, girls, 'cause here I go. Void held the smile and upright sit. I am always old, but sometimes also new. While I'm never sad, sometimes I am blue. I'm never empty, but sometimes full. I never push, but always pull. What am I? Void asked as he glanced between his family members. Was that a riddle or a freaking nursery rhyme? Pofnu asked, leaving Void to laugh, but then halt, as Vivian spoke aloud. The moon. The answer is the moon, my nieces. She said with a smirk towards Void in a devious manner. You're not the only spark who's fluent in riddles, Mr. Novason. Vivian added with a wink and finger gun towards her brother, who just smirked back. Oh, I see. I'll stomp you, sister. I'll freaking stomp you. Void retorted, leaving both Jida and Jay to roll their eyes. However, before another riddle was shared, Void's arm alerted with a sudden police report that got everyone's attention. Calling all units. We have just received word of a robbery on 29 South 4th Street. Seems to be another notorial case. Be on alert. It said, leaving Void and Jida to groan. Oh, for one night, Matthew. For one freaking... Void called, but suddenly stopped as Jay stood with a smile and summoned his armor pieces back over his body. Don't worry, I'll handle it, he said, getting everyone to look upon him with surprise. You sure, bud? Void asked with a raised eyebrow. Totally. You guys spent 2 freaking years searching for me. You deserve a rest. And besides, Jay expressed with love as he turned around and summoned his helmet over his head. I can control my abilities now better than ever. It's time for me to show the world who I really am. Jay explained, leaving Void, Jida, and the others to smile in response. Okay, my little knight. Just promise to keep that helmet on, you hear? Jida asked, leaving Jay the nod. Safety first as always, he replied with a few knocks to his chrome dome before stepping upon the building's ledge. Oh, Jay, one more thing. Void called, getting his son to look back. Be careful, and we love you. The spark said with a loving smile to his son's delight. Nodding with now furrowed eyes, Jay gave his family a dual set of finger guns, and then fell backwards off the roof. I'll be back before 9, I promise, he called before warping away. He really is just me and you mixed into one, isn't he? Jida asked as Void wrapped his arm around her and pulled each other close together. Indeed he is. And I would not have asked for a better son or family. I love you guys. Void said as they all stared up at the stars as a wave of true peace at last came over their souls. Walking through a cemetery surrounded by trees, Jay held onto a bouquet of red flowers as he slowly and sadly approached a medium-sized headstone. Upon its front, Jay read the following. Maple Lewins. Born February 2028. Died May 2041. With a heavy heart, the little spark stopped a few feet away from where she rested, and just silently gazed upon her. Surrounding the tombstone, a massive set of flowers of white had bloomed, creating what almost looked to have been a pillow for a resting spirit. "Hey, Maple. Long time no see," Jay quietly greeted, while feeling his sweater's lower half faintly blow within the warm wind. I'm home. I'm sorry I wasn't here for the funeral. I was too busy being angry at the guy who did this to you," Jay went on before slowly sitting down across from the grave. "I kinda got myself stuck, but I'm sure you know that already, wherever you are now." Holding the flowers within his lap, Jay took in a long sigh and just stared at the name, looking back at him, feeling a soft sense of guilt within his soul. "Look, I don't really have anything planned to say. If I'm being honest, I don't know what to say, other than just, I've been missing you a lot as of late," Jay expressed with a heavy heart while cracking a tiny smile. "I've missed our walks, our time in class. Speaking of that, it's going to be hard without you in school. I mean, I have to go in the freshman year as a 14-year-old. Can you believe that crap?" Jay asked with a chuckle before returning back to a state of sadness. "I just really wish you were still here for the ride. It's unfair what happened to you, what I allowed to happen to you. I should have been smarter. Maybe we'd have been something more if I had." Jay slowed his trail of thought before fully scooting closer to the grave. "Somewhere deep down, I had always imagined a scenario of us growing old together, maybe even getting married. You know, young crush crap and all that. But it's the truth. I thought I should let you know." Jay revealed with welling tears as he placed the flowers within the white patch. "A part of my heart will forever bleed on that fact of never coming to be. But that's life, I suppose. Just subverts your expectations from time to time." Jay went on as he knelt and then placed his hand upon the headstone and hung his head low with silent tears. "You know, my people, they once had a saying, a war cry, for those we lost and for those we honor. I'll be honest, that quote never really made much sense to me until now," Jay stated as a small smile grew on his face. "I'm fully becoming hero like my folks, if you can actually believe that. But unlike before, I now know why I fight. It's in order to never let what happened to you repeat again." Standing back to his feet, Jay gazed back down upon his friend's final resting place and simply shoved his hands into his pockets. "Your death was not in vain. Lois is gone, and now in your memory, I swing my blade and hold my shield high. You may be gone, and I may never see you until my last breath. But for now, you will always be in my heart, Maple. But there is something I can say with full certainty." Taking a small step back, Jay continued to smile for his lost friend before saying a few more things. "Just thank you for making those 12 years of my life worth it. I promise to keep my head high going forwards. Knowing you, that's what you would have wanted me to do. Either that or you just call me toothless again and ordered the hammer at home." Jay said as he slowly turned away from the grave and looked to the cracked sky. "I won't let you down again, Maple. I promise," Jay said with a look over his shoulder before walking off from her grave, leaving the flowers to just gently sway within the summer breeze.